Hi, welcome to the Stories Beside channel. Enjoy watching. Good evening, Anna. I would like, as usual, pasta with chicken and cream sauce and a double Americano. Of course, the waitress Anna remembers everything. This customer has dinner with them exactly once a month. On the first of the month, he always orders the same thing. He is a grown man, about 35 years old. You can't say he's handsome, but he's nice-looking and has a masculine charisma. You wouldn't call him brutal, either. Polite, strong. If Anya were older, she'd definitely have her eye on him. But at 19, no. They say Cooper even came here with his wife, but that was a long time ago. He's been alone for 5 years. And he's not divorced. He's a widower. How long ago was that? How long must it have been? 10 years? 20? Does time heal? Cooper sighed and looked at the little girls at the next table. One was clearly heavily pregnant. The man smiled at the fact that the place was sparsely crowded. And his loneliness was asked by the pleasant neighborhood. How fresh his youth was, Cooper thought carelessly. 34, not old age. But life had taken its toll. So he looked all of 40. A nerve-wracking job as a cardiologist at a regional hospital. The death of his wife. Things could have been different. Cooper and his Lola were 25 when they met. It was a southern romance. They met on the deck of a boat. They got to talking. And what was their surprise that they were from the same town. Cooper came alone. And Lara came with a friend of Ira's. Generally, her main interest was painting. Valeria carried her art supplies everywhere and made sketches. On the boat, Ira met an older man who promised the Golden Mountain. In general, the remaining 8 days of vacation, Irina was walking with her bow, and Lara saw Cooper, now and then retreat to paint the amazing colors of the southern landscapes. Of course, Cindy did not want to part with his new acquaintance. They continued to communicate. What was love? He realized almost immediately. They say there is no such thing. But facts are stubborn things. The young couple married in 6 months. What's the holdup? Lara is quiet and easygoing. Cooper was soft and strong at the same time. He was the kind of person who doesn't need to assert himself and get upset with his loved ones. Valeria decorated shop windows and painted walls in schools and gardens. Cooper served honestly by his oath of office as a doctor. The couple really wanted children, but so far they had not succeeded. Everything was yet to come. Cooper encouraged his sweetheart. Of course, we'll make it to 3 more. And maybe there will be 3 at once. Lara fantasized. Sometimes it seemed to Cooper that everything was too good to be true. He wondered if it was strange that they didn't have any fights, and maybe it was bad that they wouldn't split up for a day to miss each other. More emotion. A fatal accident changed everything. September was rainy that year. Cooper was going to work, looking for an umbrella. You should stay at home. No need to walk in such slush. You will freeze and get soaked. Better bake cookies. Cooper kissed his wife and went on duty. Lara decided to bake cookies. All the ingredients are there. Only where are the icing and cocoa? She could bake a simple homemade cake. But no, that would be no fun. Cooper will come home from work and see his favorite chocolate chip cookies on the table. We'll have to go to the store after all. It's better to go to a hypermarket. There's a wider assortment. Maybe something else will come in handy. With these thoughts in mind, Lara put on her hooded cloak and left the house. Cooper was still at work. He had a wild headache. He wished he could leave everything and go away. Lie down on the couch at home. Watch as Lara wizarded around the table, poured fragrant tea with Melissa, brought out cookies on a platter. She asks me if you want to eat them, though. Or do you have a very bad headache? She knows that during headache attacks her husband prefers tea with herbs and something sweet. A call from an unknown number cuts his life sharply into before and after. You know Krista? Yes, I'm her husband. Cooper's throat went dry. He knew exactly what would follow that question. Of course, that's what they say when a man in the hospital unconscious. But Cooper immediately felt a sharp pain somewhere deep inside. a chilling fear of not being able to breathe. "I'm sorry, but your wife passed away. There was an accident on Road 1. There was no way to save her. Can you come here?" From there, everything was a blur. Cooper acted on automaticity. He clearly followed the instructions. At the hospital emergency room, Cooper met an acquaintance of his from the institute. "So he's working in their ER now." "Cooper, I'm sorry. We did everything we could." "How did it happen?" "I heard myself from Cooper's side. A loaded truck hit a bus on a curve, and the brakes failed. Plus it was pouring. Couldn't see the road. Dangerous stretch. Catastrophe for everyone who was there. The survivors are highly questionable, and few in number." "What was wrong with her?" When the doctor listed Lyra's injuries, it was clear they were incompatible with life. "She died at the scene. A team went out there with George. He witnessed it himself." "Hold on, do you need help?" the doctor asked Cooper. "Probably not." He had a detached look on his face. "We have to do the funeral." Cooper did everything clearly and correctly. He organized everything. My parents and brother came to Lyra's funeral. Outwardly, they seemed grief-stricken, and Cooper was detachedly calm. Apparently, a protective response was triggered so as not to have a heart attack or go crazy. The last time he saw Lyra, he even felt relaxed. His beloved wife then looked like a sleeping beauty, as if she would rest, get up, smile, and everything would be as before. I couldn't believe her death, such a sudden, ridiculous accident. Days and practicality were replaced by guilt. Cooper often went over and over in his head the options in which Lola would have survived. He might not have asked for the cookies. After all, that was the reason his wife had gone to the store. He could have offered to insist on dropping her off for frosting, but he didn't know there wasn't any damn frosting at home. After all, he could have switched shifts and stayed home that day. There's no telling where guilt can lead after the death of a loved one. Something out of the ordinary has to happen to switch brains. That's Cooper's job. Every day something happens. He sees life fading away. Death is felt from it. But it's on the surface. The feeling goes deep into the subcortex of something depressing, but not realized. A year has passed. Cooper got used to living alone. The desire to start a new family did not even visit him in the distant future, even though his mother kept telling him it was time. "Cooper, I understand Lola loved you, but she looks down on you from heaven and pities you. And the egg alone to eat, what is it like?"
Don't forget to
Batty
subscribe our
lamented.
channel and like it.
"Well, I'm
Thank
not
you.
completely handicapped in everyday life. And what if I have to go to the canteen or cook potatoes?" Cooper shrugged it off. He understood that his mother wants the best. It hurt her to look at her son, who had changed a lot since his wife died. And he thought, yes, Lyra wished he could find a woman. But no, getting married certainly didn't. Cooper still came every month on the first of the month to the restaurant. Once it had been his and Lyra's tradition. They met on July 1, and that was the day they considered their anniversary, not their wedding day, which was in the winter. Another year passed since his death. Valerie Semyon began to go to the theater sometimes and just to walk around the square with the girls. But he never imagined that any new acquaintance would take him to a Lola restaurant, much less leak him at home. Cooper was used to managing his own household. Besides, from time to time his mother came by and was surprised looking at the half-empty fridge and started the same topic about marriage. It's a good thing Mom is married. Otherwise, there would have been no peace for him. Lately, Cooper preferred solitude, but he also knew that there were people out there. They're on their own. He's on his own solitude, but not deafening loneliness. And so, in a restaurant on December 1, Cooper watched the girls at a nearby table. The one who was pregnant turned out to be Alina. That's what her friend Agata called her. Cooper wondered how it was that her husband let this Louisa out of the house, seeing that she even had trouble getting around. The girl is young. What is she? 22 or 24, probably due in labor. There you go, her friends whispered, laughing like they were bursting with laughter. Suddenly Louisa threw herself and grabbed her stomach. Her friend jumped up, but the alarm proved false. The lively conversation continued. Cooper, of course, was not listening, but he realized that some signs of impending labor had been there the day before. But since everything was normal now, there was no need to worry. It's still early. Cooper looked around. There were no more visitors. On the contrary, a couple sitting at a table near the door went, and he took his dessert. That's when Louisa twisted so badly that she grabbed her stomach and blushed. She bit her lip to the point of bleeding, so she didn't have to scream. Her friend Agata touched the pregnant woman's forehead. It was instantly covered with sweat. The contractions repeated themselves. Agata didn't know how to act. She jumped up, gently stroking her friend's arm and looking into her eyes. Louisa, clearly it was not getting any better. "Help me," Toma screamed. She finally realized what was going on. She was in labor. There was no one to help. The waitress came running in, pale as a sheet. She clutched at her apron with her hands and stood there like a stone. A second waitress was standing nearby, no less frightened. The action unfolded very quickly. Louisa's waters had already broken. There was no room for delay. Of course, the waitresses called an ambulance, but there was no way she was coming. The roads were blocked and the car was stuck. The ambulance crew had no choice but to wait for the traffic to clear. Of course, Cooper was no obstetrician, but he had to take matters into his own hands. Literally, he came out from behind the table, announced that he was a doctor, and ordered the waiters to bring warm water and clean towels right away. He figured out how to make the mother in labor more comfortable. They found something to put on the bed and closed the restaurant. The waitress was the only one who pulled herself together and promised to help the doctor in a hurry. The ambulance wasn't here yet, and the labor had begun. Agata was terribly nervous, but surprisingly calmed down. "Doctor, I trust you." After these words, Surig's determination increased. He could not let the girls down. "It's a good thing we didn't have to do a C-section, but in an inpatient setting, they would probably have suggested an operation." The birth was difficult. The boy was in Surig's arms, and just as the ambulance arrived, the newborn was fine. What could not be said for his mother? Louisa was losing consciousness. She could barely move her dry lips. Then Cooper walked over to her and confidently told Louisa, "Everything is going to be okay. The boy is healthy. There is nothing wrong with him. The doctors will help you." Cooper said this. He sat down, shaking with excitement and tension. He wiped sweat from his forehead, which was running in rivulets. The EMT shook his hand and noted his timely participation. "Anything could have happened without you, even the worst. I took an oath to be a doctor, didn't I?" Cooper smiled. The young mother was taken to the hospital. While everything was going on, everyone was clutching their hearts, and I finally let the tears flow. Cooper dropped his head on the table and said, "Girls, I'm not an obstetrician." It turned out that while everything was going on at the restaurant, the owner of the place called. Anya picked up the phone and in a shaky voice explained what kind of force majeure they had there. He arrived, but the woman and the child had already been taken away by ambulance. The man, the owner of the restaurant, held up his hand. "Cooper Mikhailovich, your regular customer. Anna told me what happened. You were brave. I thank you. I'm offering you dinner on the house."
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and
I acted like a normal
Thank
person,
you.
modest as a hero. Besides, I had time for dinner. He smiled faintly. "I suggest an excellent cognac, then." He disappeared into the bowels of the restaurant and soon returned with a bottle of expensive aged cognac. Sore had no strength to argue. The owner gave the waiters a bottle of wine and sat down to drink it with the doctor himself. Apparently, his heart sank in his heels when he realized what was going on in his establishment. "Dear friend, you did the honorable thing, but Louisa looked very bad." No matter what happened, Jack took hold of his head. "I did what I could in an off-patient setting." Cooper threw up his hands. "The hospital will help her. The main thing is that the boy is already all right. By the time they get there, by the time they put him in, The restaurant owner shook his head. I know you're good. But Harry, who is Harry? Cooper asked. Already calmed down, he was snacking on cognac and cheese with lemon. Oh, dear Harry the priest. That's Louisa's husband. I don't know him. What questions can you ask me? They survived. They survived. His wife and son are fine. Oh, you don't know, do you, priest? Let's have another round. I'm so glad. My client's health is the most important thing to me. But you be careful. Cooper shrugged and drank another drink. He was very nervous. 01649. December 2 was Sourig's day off. He went out for a walk down the street. The cognac was excellent, of course, but his head was rattling as if for no good reason. Maybe from the emotions and the responsibility that suddenly came over him. But Cooper was satisfied. Happy, even. He had done everything he could and more. He called the hospital to inquire about the health of the mother and child who had been saved yesterday. The woman is in intensive care, but her condition is no worse. The boy is under observation, and all will be well with Louisa and baby. Cooper breathed in the frosty air of the snow-covered, spruce lonely white benches. There was something timeless and proud about this winter landscape. Cooper, he heard a loud voice from behind him. Detective Chief Lieutenant Morozov, you are accused of exceeding your authority. Let's go to the station. You are under arrest. Cooper turned around in surprise and saw the policeman. Who are you? One of them, the one who said he was a senior lieutenant, showed his badge. What happened? Cooper was shocked. Let's go to the station. You exceeded your authority, your official powers. There was no point in arguing. Cooper still did not understand anything. His head was buzzing, and only as he drove up to the station Cooper remembered Jack's warning from yesterday. Harry, apparently. What a day. Cooper was sure that somewhere out there he would face Harry, but he answered only to the police officer captain. Cooper, why did you take an oath like that? And a woman was threatened. Cooper, thought we were talking about some patient and started to think back quickly. No one had died on his ward lately. Comrade, there must be some mistake. Cooper Mikhailovich, there is no mistake. You, as far as I know, are a cardiologist. The captain specially underlined the last word. That's right. Cooper nodded his head. You think you are God. The policeman grinned and continued. Yesterday you delivered a baby without being a midwife. I repeat, not being a midwife. A young woman. And this, by the way, is Louisa, Harry's wife. Do you understand what you're facing now? Yes, I was doing my duty. The EMCs said I did the right thing. Otherwise, anything could have happened. I was saving the life of a woman and a child. Cooper, confused, began to tell how everything was. The policeman listened and said his opinion, and after your misconduct, the woman is in intensive care. Misconduct ended up being a pointless inquest, since the outcome was predetermined. Sovereign was thrown into a cell. The man was not a timid man, but seeing the look on the faces of his fellow inmates, he wanted to pinch himself and wake up. He had heard about the atrocities that went on in prisons, knew about it from real people. Cooper was outraged to be here, but not too surprised. He quickly came to terms with it for the time being and hoped he could find a way out later. But for now, his head cracked and worked almost nothing. Cooper was surprised that the other arrestees were not talking to him, but rather glancing around talking amongst themselves. One of them could pass leaning right over Sourig's face and stare into his eyes for a long time. Something was on his mind. Start a conversation by himself, pretend to be preoccupied with his thoughts, or go to sleep. Cooper didn't know what to do. Suddenly one of them, a narrow-mouthed man with a ridiculously wide nose and small eyes, spoke up. Listen, rookie, we're old, experienced recidivists here, so to speak, and you're going to listen to me. And I'm in charge here. You ever see the movies, what they do to the dissenters? Cooper shrugged his shoulders. Well, this must be the first time you've been caught. What's the column they're sending you to, anyway? Bus 2. They go straight to the ones that hurt the kids. That's the law. I didn't hurt the kids. On the contrary, I saved them. The recidivists laughed. Well, yeah, I saved a kid. And I'm in here. Quiet, you whispered at them. I was having dinner in a restaurant when suddenly a woman I didn't know went into labor. The ambulance couldn't get there because of the bad weather, so I delivered the baby. You interrupted the waiter in fright. One of the exes laughed. No, I didn't nail anybody. Cooper replied seriously. The waiters helped me. The baby was born healthy. The ambulance came very late. And I'm a doctor. What did the bizarre spit then? The main one. I'm not an obstetrician. I have no right to deliver a baby. I was arrested the next day. The woman's husband claimed I ruined everything. And Cooper explained to me what had happened. At the same time decided to clarify who Harry the priest see. The priest whistled one of the cellmates. Now you're screwed. That's the local authority. Now, sure, he kind of stepped on the right track, but that's now. No one knows what he was doing here. That's why he's in jail. He's got all his own ideas. Pray his wife doesn't die. Otherwise you're dead. I'm a doctor, a cardiologist. Who could have saved her if not me? Then the chief looked at Sorig's face and said slowly, I know your face. A doctor, you say, a cardiologist in a hospital. Cooper nodded. My mother found out that I was taken again and ended up in the hospital. My heart couldn't take it. The regional one. Alice, I know my patient will be fine. It's not a heart attack. But of course, you have to take care of your nerves and take your medicine every day. She is on the mend. Tears welled up in the chief's eyes, and he patted Sorig on the shoulder. You saved her, didn't you? You'll be under my protection now. Everyone heard. Of course, everyone heard and understood. It turned out that the other cellmate at Mike's treated father is still living after a heart attack. God bless him. A sister of someone's acquaintance, there is a nurse in that hospital, says a good Dr. Cooper helped out their simple female staff. He treated everyone with respect and understanding, if anything happened. The doctor realized then that not only does his job for nothing, he fixes and saves lives, but also wins love and respect. Cooper was called in for questioning, and there sits Harry, the priest himself, as it turned out, came to look you in the eyes of the scum, nearly sent my wife to the other side of the world. Who gave you the right to put your hands where you don't belong? I'm not an obstetrician, but I couldn't wait. I tried to make it clear to Cooper. My water broke, and the ambulance got stuck in traffic. It happens. And Cooper tried to repeat the circumstances again. The priest looked at him silently. I've listened to you, and I understand you're a charlatan in a white coat. He did not say anything intelligible, and nothing new either. My wife is in the hospital. You don't know who you're messing with. See him from here, shouted the priest. Cooper didn't want to tell his mother what happened, but she found out anyway. She took sedatives and fussed. It was understandable that if they could get him for the right cause, they might even get him arrested. If I may say so, Cooper was lucky with his cellmates. When they found out about his noble deeds that were relevant to them, the men did not offend him and promised to rip the head off whoever touched him. Let's solve the priest, somehow whispered the main one. We'll find the men who are free, but he's not so easy to get to, either. No, that's all right. You what? I'll look for justice in a different way when I get out, Cooper answered. It turned out that during the 2 weeks the doctor had been in the cell with them, the mother of the chief had been discharged home for home treatment. She got better and more or less calmed down. Law-abiding thief or robber. Every man cherishes his mother, just as a woman continues to love her son. Even a criminal. Well, or almost every relative does. 2 weeks into Cooper's life behind bars.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel
Then
and
something happened that turned his life upside down. Louisa showed up at the police station. She recovered fairly quickly. The commission confirmed that Dr. Cooper had helped and saved the woman and child through his actions. What was there to say? When Louisa came to the police station alive and well and insisted that the doctor be released, the story went to the local media. If there was an earlier charge of negligence, there was. From the fact that the woman was in intensive care, what can be said now? Apparently, Louisa was relieved of his heart and did not insist on a further fabricated case. Sorig was summoned. It turns out that Louisa is the one who has suffered horrors. And what is there to say? Cooper himself was caught up in a nasty story. "Thank you very much, doctor," she smiled. "Well, you see, unhealthy. Everything is good. The baby's fine, too. Named him Thomas. God's gift, then. I'm glad." Sorig was noticeably warm at heart. Such a naive, meek, sweet girl. How she turned out to be the wife of a bandit, a priest doctor. "You'll have to excuse me, Harry. I've come to rescue you. It's hard to prove anything." "I know that. I understand. Thank you." Cooper was brief. What else is he going to say? It really has nothing to do with her. "If it's all right, can I ask you for more medical help?" "Yes, of course. I work in cardiology at a local hospital." "You're welcome. It's my duty to help." That was the end of the conversation. Louisa had been on his mind for a long time. A bright, gentle beauty, and a voice as melodious as a bell. How would her life turn out? Soon Sorig was released into the wild. For some reason, he remembered his only conversation with Louisa, and even regretted that he could not continue to talk to her. Well, he and Harry have a powerful family. A son was born. What kind of communication could there be with an ordinary doctor? And what's the occasion? Cooper went outside, breathed in the air, looked at the sky, the trees, the people. I felt so good in my soul. He came home. His mother was happy there. She cleaned and cooked everything. She did not even complain and did not ask about these 2 weeks. "Cooper, when do you go to work now?" I asked for a reason. When I got caught with this arrest at work, they gave me 3 weeks off retroactively. So I have time to get away from everything that's happened. You don't really think I'm guilty of anything, do you? No, of course not, son. You've been very honest with me since childhood. And as a doctor, you are always capable. You're a respected specialist. But what will they say in the hospital now? How will they be presented? Okay, let's go. I'll feed you. During the conversation, mother and son did not notice how evening came. The mother went home. Cooper lay down on the couch and pulled his legs in. He almost fell asleep. How all of a sudden? Did the doorbell ring? Who else could it be? Was that creepy priest, the one determined to get him? To Sorig's surprise, Louisa was standing on the doorstep with an envelope in her hands. A sniffling sound came from the envelope. On the floor in the hallway there was a small wheeled bag. "Hello. I'm sorry for the intrusion. I wanted to talk to you." "If I may," Cooper gestured to come in, helped to take the bag and clarified that the husband is chasing. Maybe Harry was mad at his wife for visiting the police. "You're almost right. Only it was the other way around. We were fighting. He said I could go all the way. Let's turn the baby around. He must be hot in here," Cooper suggested. "And let's talk thoroughly." The boy was relieved of his warm clothes, put on the bed, and he fell asleep rather quickly. Louisa began her story. In fact, Harry is not Thomas's father. During the May holidays, Louisa went to the countryside. That's where she met Jacob. He was a quiet guy, romantic. In the evenings, the company of young people would gather around the fire, and whoever could played the guitar. Jacob sat on the sidelines. Louisa was an urban beauty, accustomed to keep a mark, and looked great. It was only there, where she smelled of luxurious hay, dosh, flowers, and trees, that she felt relaxed.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and like it.
Here, the girl did not try to please anyone.
Thank you.
And rested her soul in the village. Once talked to Jacob, and he seemed so simple and complex at the same time. He loved poetry and painters' exhibitions. At the same time, he was a simple country boy, for whom the practical side of life is more important. He would never live in the hustle and bustle of the city. How modest and indecisive, thought Louisa about Jacob. He must have a hard time with girls. Generally, she thought she had found a good friend of a like-minded man. But the guy turned out to be not so easy, over-talking and complaining about the lack of understanding of his delicate soul. Jacob quickly got the girl involved. She herself did not notice how she found herself in his arms. Few people in such cases think that getting pregnant the first time is easy. And so it was. The Louisa Jacob claimed that he had made all the arrangements, and the child could not be from him. Only then did it come to Louisa that nothing foretold that Jacob was serious about her. She was not even acquainted with his parents. Louisa came home. Her mother supported her decision to give birth to the baby, even if she took it alone and made the decision to interrupt someone else's life for the birth. The girl could not, and soon realized that she was ready to become a mother. Alexandra worked as an assistant manager in a firm that sold construction supplies, and her boss was Harry, aka the bandit, aka the local rich man, aka the authority figure of the priest. He was bossy, hot-tempered, strong as a manager, had kept the company afloat for years. Harry had the right people, the right connections, everywhere. But as a man he was unpredictable. But Louisa paid no attention to his mood swings. She understood that work was all about relationships and talking business, nothing personal. Soon Harry began to wonder why they were often in a bad mood. It turned out that it was because she was pregnant. There was no point in hiding it. The next day Harry called her in, but kept thinking she was going to kick her out. Why would he want a pregnant employee? But things turned out differently. Harry reported that he knows how to help the mother. Louisa has a rare, poorly studied disease. Everyone thinks it cannot be cured, but Harry will find doctors for her. No one knows what to do, but he will figure it out. In return, he wants to marry her and have her child in his name. She was terribly surprised. But then it turns out that Harry can't have children, and he needs a family. And the girl is smart, beautiful, and without much pretension suits him as a wife. Never mind that there is no love between them. There is no need for a family. There is always more credibility in a family man running for office than in a bachelor. Thus, Harry actually convinces Louisa to take a kind of bargain. He marries her, making himself look like a model family man in the highest circles of wife and child, helping the afflicted and miraculously healing his mother-in-law, the perfect image of a potential deputy. Mother Louisa strongly doubted that the man empowered would accept someone else's child, but it is unlikely that anything can happen and will come out in the family. Louisa will be attached to the baby too. What will happen next? You never know. But for now, the daughter needs good nutrition, care, and the best doctors. And Harry can provide that. Mother had a rare disease with an unpredictable course. It was impossible to heal it completely, only to prevent the disintegration of body cells, to suspend the development of the disease. Harry and Louisa were married. All of the city's elite were at the wedding. And how much money Harry spent to make it look good. He almost went bankrupt. Of course, he invested in the firm. And he didn't care about the people who were suffering. He talked about curing my mother, but never got to any concrete action. He only sent her to a healer, since Mom believed in God and not in all these conspiracies. But what if something will help? She drank the infusion, but it did not help. Doctors said no more, just like before. What could a grandmother do? When the ultrasound showed a boy, he realized that he had not miscalculated by marrying her. There was no love lost between the couple. What's more, Harry was out and about. He provided for Louisa, and he did not need to be suspected that his wife walked around like a ragamuffin, that she attended a regular antenatal clinic. So everything Harry did was for show. Meanwhile, Alexandra's mother was getting worse. Her husband was worried. All hurried him with the promised help. He threw his hands up, saying, "Well, the doctors do not know anything. Let him drink the doctor's infusion." What could he do? Louisa saw that her husband did not care about her mother, but with his money she could at least provide care and medicine. Especially Harry was waiting for an heir to come into the world. Alexandra. She thought perhaps love would come in time, but when it came, if her husband was never home. When the birth suddenly began in the restaurant, Louisa was very frightened. She suddenly felt so bad that she didn't even remember that she could call the doctor who was watching her. And well, in the end, it turned out that he had ignored the arrangement and taken off on vacation. Apparently Harry didn't pay enough. Or did they have a conflict of interest with that doctor in some way? Louisa didn't know. When she went into the ICU and was there, her mother died suddenly because of her illness. Of course, her daughter didn't find out about it right away. Mom was buried without her, unfortunately. The doctor said it was impossible to save her, and so she lived quite decently with her illness. Meanwhile, Harry began to question whether he really needed a wife with another man's child.
Don't forget to
It is
subscribe our
much more
channel and
interesting
like it.
for his career to
Thank
make
you.
a hero of himself, to mark his nobility. Say he was deceived, but he did not leave the girl and helped her in the future. That's for the conniving seductress. And he is a decent man. A child who was born prematurely and inexplicably how. So his wife ended up in the NICU. Maybe he'll be sick, and it'll take a while to find out. Besides, Nagua was pissed when he found out that Louisa had decided to help Cooper. Who is this Cooper anyway? An ex-lover, maybe? A lot of things were said by Harry. Louisa went to her mother's apartment, getting money from her husband, so she wouldn't say anything bad about me later. But now she didn't know what to do. Nagua's moods were changing, like the wind, not in the spring. Here came to consult with Harry, but she trusted for some reason, and she had no one else. Her mother had died recently, and her father had been dead a long time. There were no close relatives left. After listening carefully to the confession, Cooper decided that you can live here for now, and I don't know what will come into Nagua's head. I'm afraid he'll think of stealing Leo and taking it for himself, but that we will not allow categorically, Cooper declared. The doctor's apartment was a 2-room apartment. There was room for the baby, and it was more fun for him. A living soul at home, and the worry of guests. And Louisa was more relaxed. It's very strange that her husband doesn't do that. We all live as a family too. Otherwise get out. Just did not understand something. Cooper, how he treats the girl seemed like an older friend. Maybe not like that. Sori had no children of his own, but he had experience with little ones. He had a younger sister, Marina, and a niece, Vera. Now they lived in the Far East and didn't often enjoy coming. And Cooper had long wanted children. Unfortunately, it never worked out with his wife, and he was happy to have a baby in the house, albeit a stranger, albeit not a woman he loved. Or was it not? The man thought more and more about his attitude towards Louisa and Leo, but he could not understand whether this kindness was human, whether he had a sense of duty, loneliness, or something else, but certainly not pity. Of course, Louisa could not work and tried to help Sorig at home. Leo was a restless boy. So often, on the contrary, Cooper would help her rocking, changing clothes, ironing laundry. On the day the doctor was due to leave his so-called vacation, he called the hospitals to clarify his exit. He was invited to his office by the head doctor. It turned out that the management understood that Cooper was an excellent specialist, but they didn't need him with a tarnished reputation. Yes, he was acquitted and released. But what if somebody found out and stopped trusting the professionalism of the doctors of the regional clinic? They asked him to write a letter of resignation. He was released without a scandal, and kind of voluntarily. There was nothing to do. I wrote Cooper's resignation letter. All the more it was a shame that the rumors outweighed the real merits of the doctor for the bosses. You deserve better, assured you now former doctor. His guests, Louisa, you have been underestimated. But you are an excellent specialist, because you are known in the city and will be admitted to another clinic in a paid and will be higher income. Everything for the better. Give it a try. By the way, Harry called.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and like it.
Did you?
Thank you.
Did I say no? I don't want to. I'm much safer with you than I am with that strange man. I wouldn't even call him my husband. It's a sham. Everything was. There was no love lost between us. So, Harry said I'd remember him again. Louisa threw up her hands. She was no longer afraid of her husband, but she knew that something bad would happen. He did not need me, and a stranger's child, too. At first he promised me the moon, and he actually helped me. Then he showed himself for what he really is. He ruined your reputation. Louisa, let's keep it on a first-name basis." Cooper smiled and stroked her on the shoulder. "It's okay." Louisa referred to what an urgent need to see. The water in the pot must have boiled. In fact, she felt a treacherous shiver in her knees and decided to hide it urgently. "Hello, I am a cardiologist. I saw the vacancy. Yes, there is a work experience, of course. 11 years in the clinical regional." Cooper: "No, sorry." That's how every conversation with a potential employer ended. Sometimes they said they would call back, but they didn't. Cooper couldn't get a job anywhere, not even in the village. He knew it wasn't an accident. Harry must have arranged it. Shook his head at Sorig's mother. She had already met Batty and was in the know. Probably, yes. But then again, he kicked Batty out himself. What else does he want? He kicked her out. Then he called her back in. He's used to everybody making money. But here, he's being listened to. He feels bad. He hates it. What's wrong with him is that the girl's going after you. I like Louisa. She's positive. But no matter what happens with Nagum's son, you've been in jail for him. You're involved with a gangster. Mom, that's enough. What for the rest of your life now? You're not afraid of his revenge. But think about it. Do you really need it, Louisa? Batty shook her head. Her mother's anxiety was understandable. But when she came, she was sure to take Leo in her arms and work with him. Granddaughter Patty was far away, and her grandmother's instinct demanded an outlet of emotion. Louisa Batty did not sting. She communicated politely, but without unnecessary emotion. From time to time, she offered her son to leave someone else's wife and himself to arrange his own family. He was strong, courageous, and smart enough to find a bride. Cooper, can I move into my own apartment with Fadia? No, he can't. I have made up my mind. Cooper froze with a cup of tea in his hand. After standing there for a few seconds, he silently held out the hot drink to Louisa. She said, and then she cried. What is it? It's not like they are kicking you out. Cooper was confused. Louisa sobbed out loud. Why are you upset now? Don't listen to my mother. She treats you well. She's just a troubled person. But I'll talk to her. No, she's talking. Louisa, am I giving you nothing but trouble? Help you. Thank you. But I'll take it from here. Cooper sat down beside her and took her hands in his. Do I need you? And Louisa was afraid to lift her face and look at Sorig. She felt a rush of new feelings. Yes, now she knew for sure that it was love. And the girl was afraid of that feeling. Cooper began to stroke her hair and kiss her hands. Louisa was no longer able to resist and pressed his palm to her cheeks. Louisa felt completely happy. He was surprisingly gentle and felt every cell of her. Finally, she said suddenly, and laid her head on his shoulder. Cooper, I'm afraid to open my eyes. What if I dreamed of you? Go away. I've been waiting for you. Cooper lay brooding. He was relaxed and felt like the other half of Louisa. That was the comparison he had chosen himself for his feelings in the here and now. After a couple of minutes he came to his senses and turned to her. So you love me too? Cooper clarified with tenderness, looking into her eyes. And of course, Louisa stroked his hair. The baby woke up, and Cooper began to check on him. He had been out of work for a month now. Cooper knew that, as a cardiologist, he would not be accepted anywhere. Harry had contributed to this. Now both he and Louisa knew for sure. It turned out during a conversation with one of the owners of a private clinic, he was personally acquainted with Sorig and knew him as an excellent specialist. So he honestly said, Give it up. You know what I mean. Louisa was sitting across the table from Fadia at that moment, and she understood everything. She had no doubt that this was what Harry had threatened to do the last time they had spoken. She wanted a quick divorce from her husband, and finally, he'd agreed to file. He must have found someone else. But Harry didn't slow down, and in all medical institutions the name Cooper was banned. Harry's credibility was stronger for hiring than the doctor's honest name. Cooper could not imagine himself in any other place, but he had to try something. One of his saved patients came up with the idea. George offered to register the firm in his own name, to deflect suspicion. And then Nagu would get tired of being poisoned. Then Cooper would come out of the shadows and rub his nose in it. Why would he get tired of it? I don't get it, Cooper. He's already agreed to a divorce with Alka. He doesn't forget about me. But sure, let's try business. Thank you for the offer. Harry found a new girl. She already has a kid. It's believed to be Harry's son. I don't think so, actually. But now it's made to look like the Louisa story was an act of charity. And now he's ready to show the public the real bride and mother of his child. Now he's got it twisted. Cooper marveled. Is that mandatory for a deputy? Sort of. Wife, son, noble deeds. The benefactor, be assured. The media will present everything in his favor. They'll explain what's what. Cooper laughed involuntarily, imagining on the poster the serious face of Harry Priest for truth and justice. Thus, he and a friend first opened a small and budgetary firm of Flash. The name came to mind before the occupation.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and like it.
In the end, they decided to go into advertising. Cooper took online courses on the subject, and his partner George had an economics degree and experience as a marketer. Louisa was glad that Cooper stirred things up and switched from the problem of unemployment. She always said she believed in him and thought he was strong and capable. And Louisa started making toys to order. Batty helped out by coming over to babysit her grandson. If Louisa was getting ready for the fair, the toys were not exclusive, but they looked very nice and were popular with the earnings. It was thick and thin, but the proceeds from the fair helped weather the downturn in her husband's business. The Leo was growing, and Cooper, if you step back 3 years ago, could no longer imagine life without his wife and son. Harry never showed up. Why should he? Married, raising a boy by the local deputy himself. What else did he need? Forgot about the way Louisa came out. Didn't think about Cooper's place. He could go back to medicine, but he didn't want to go where he had a bad reputation. You know, Che, everything will be all right. Invariably, she told her husband Louisa. She always believed in her husband and supported his ideas. It had been 5 years since they had met. A lot had changed, and everything was finally for the better. The family has expanded. Twins Nadia and Lyuba appeared. Batty couldn't be happy. She couldn't imagine that she had ever been against her son's relationship with Louisa. But it was not because of dislike for the girl herself, but because of Nagua and his unpredictability. The Flash firm was doing well in the city. It was outmaneuvering its competitors. Cooper discovered an ability and interest in a business completely unrelated to medicine. Perhaps he would return to being a doctor. The same chief physician at the Martin Regional Hospital, who had once prevented Cooper from working because of his ridiculous conflict with Harry, came to Flash for publicity. The doctor opened a medical center for children and wanted to be trumpeted everywhere. Seeing Sorig in the advertising company owner's chair, Martin laughed in embarrassment, covered his face, and was about to find an excuse to leave. After firing Sorig, a great specialist, realizing that it wasn't his fault and that he was doing his duty, Martin felt uncomfortable for a while. But what's done is done. What would Cooper say now? The owner of the Flash pulled out the Kodnik from the cabinet and put 2 shot glasses on the table. There was also sliced lemon ceviche. Martin, I do not hold a grudge. Let's have a chat. Like in the good old days, we used to work well together. I understand why you did what you did. I'm sorry, Cooper, that was awkward. But if it wasn't for that incident, would I still be here? I know you have a new clinic, too. Tell me about it. It's been an equally useful collaboration for Martin and Sorig. Flash advertised the services of the center, and the employees of the center handed out business cards Flash. The firm grew. George and Cooper began to attend more and more events for entrepreneurs. They traveled to different cities and participated in online conferences. At one of these events, Naga's priest also attended. He looked at Sorgovich, suddenly coughed, drank a glass of water, and headed for the door. George, turning around, accompanied him with a glance. I wasn't aware of the priest coming in suspiciously, too, he pronounced. I thought he'd left town altogether. Away to the higher ranks, Cooper shrugged. George and Cooper combined business with pleasure. Drinks, hors d'oeuvres, guest appearances, introductions to representatives of various business spheres. You can relax and socialize in an informal setting.
Don't forget to
Make
subscribe our
contacts,
channel and like it.
exchange
Thank you.
experiences. The event was designed for several hours. A coffee break was organized during the breaks between the participants. Entrepreneurs communicated freely with one another. Suddenly, Harry grabbed his left hand and changed his face. "What's wrong with you?" concerned his companion. "It's nothing. You should exercise more often," Harry joked. Now, where were we? Cooper noticed it and was already in the habit of preparing a priest in obviously too much alcohol and not feeling well. He was coming up for air. Then he was writhing in pain. It did not look fresh at all. His face was now scared and now returned to normal. Harry and Sorig did not approach each other on business, nor did they talk to each other. It was as if the priest had come to the event simply as a guest and had no plans to make any speeches. He was no longer a deputy, but a recognizable man in town. Suddenly, Harry rushed abruptly toward the door. He staggered back, and he began to settle down. A moment, and the man lost consciousness. Someone screamed. Someone rushed for water. In their panic, they didn't immediately think to call an ambulance. And when one of the women in attendance screamed for a doctor, Cooper was quickly on hand. He made his way over to Nagu and realized it was a heart attack. "Ambulance," he commanded. "I need an ambulance. Tell me, is it a heart attack?" Cooper felt the pulse take off prominently. As a cardiologist, naturally, he remembered and understood what to do. In such cases, indirect cardiac massage was performed in time. Thanks to the priest and the garland, he survived. Knowing Sorig, George did not doubt for a second that the doctor would rush to his aid. But to those present who knew of the long history when Cooper was left with nothing, it was surprising that he volunteered to help. There may have been more former doctors among the entrepreneurs, but no one approached. Cooper worked quickly and professionally. Nagua was treated by Martin himself. He also informed Sorig that the patient was alive, saved, but now he is strictly forbidden to drink alcohol, smoke, and of course, to be nervous. Harry's wife called Christy and thanked him for saving her. And when the priest finally got out of the hospital, he asked the family for a meeting. They met at a coffee shop. When Cooper arrived, Harry was sitting at a table with a glass of mousse and the usual salad. Apparently, he had a strong fear for his life. Cooper approached, and Harry hurriedly stood up, extending his hand. "It's good to see you. Join us for lunch. I'm on a diet now." Cooper nodded his head. He wasn't angry with Harry now, but there was certainly an unpleasant residue. Cooper ordered coffee and waited for his companion to talk about what he had been invited here for. Cooper began Harry, as if even embarrassed. "What I want to say. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much. If it wasn't for your expertise, your professionalism, I wouldn't be sitting here. I know that. It's kind of ironic. Saved by the man I was putting sticks in the wheels, and then treated by the other man I was forcing to put those sticks in." Cooper maintained the official tone. "I have no doubts about Martin as a top-notch specialist. He is also the head doctor and owner of the medical center, not for nothing. But you, Cooper, you can also call me you." So he felt sorry for the recent enemy, and he decided to be friendly. All right. Harry waved his hands. He was clearly nervous and felt unaccustomedly insecure. "And thanks again. Come on. I did my duty. Maybe I'm not even an obstetrician." Cooper paused here, of course, but cardiology is my specialty. I'm a doctor by vocation, and I can't leave a man to die for no reason. My conscience wouldn't allow it. The men somehow got to talking. It turned out that Harry now regretted that he had even persuaded George to marry, and he did not know how to help her mother. It was clear that the doctors did not know how to treat, and he made empty promises. He did not love her, and she did not love him. But he should have been married by status, and the son was almost ready. But it was not worth it. But a heart attack affected him globally. Cooper thought of him and helped him. And he didn't think at the time that he, too, had an honest name and loved ones who were affected by that arrest. I have to say, he didn't figure out what was what at first. Indeed, he was angry at the doctor who had put his wife in intensive care. Then he was pissed that the doctor had overtaken him by such an overlord. He had gone to him with all the anger of aggression. Now Harry would not have stooped to such shenanigans. It was not easy for Sorig to listen to the man who had set him up. But there was one but. Harry, I heard you, but I'll tell you something. I'm even grateful to you. If it wasn't for all this spin, I wouldn't have met my love. I guess you know we got married. We're raising cheek to cheek and more daughters. So I gained a lot more than I lost. I've also ruined my career, and now I'm offering this. Harry held out a puffy envelope and waited for the transfer to the details of the firm. Well, I won't refuse it, Cooper said. I feel better now. I feel redeemed. Cooper sighed and smiled sincerely and shook his hand. He needed the money to expand his business.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and like it.
Now he was sure he could get a lot of things done as planned, much faster and more efficiently. And Harry felt so much more at ease. He then had both the joy of being alive and the constant fear of death haunting him. Such a dual feeling. So he thought. There was no telling what the next minute would hold for him. And Martin scheduled an examination for Nagua, the results of which made it clear the body was carrying a disease here, a disease there. You have to live a healthy lifestyle. Cooper also took up sports not too long ago. You know, like sports. And sometimes he rides a bike, and in the winter he goes skiing in the park. And did not support the interest of her husband, did not want to get involved in these activities. Once on a ski trip, Cooper met Nagua, which was very surprised. Nor was his wife supportive. Cooper began the conversation. I live alone now. My wife found a younger and healthier man. She flew abroad with him. When I was formidable and bossy, she lived like a sweetheart. But it's better that way. You know a friend when you're in trouble. And so does a spouse. Cooper changed the subject, and Harry suggested after the ski trip that we stop by his place. I can't. We were going shopping today. It's time to get ready for New Year's Eve. Gifts, costumes for the holiday. I'm going away for the holidays, Harry. Well, I'll see you later. Home. Cooper talked to Batty about how he met Deaconov, how he's changed. The question is, for how long? But at least he had some perspective. When a person is on the verge of life and death, he can reboot. It's a shame not for everyone. And then his wife left him barely alive. But what did he want? Everything is calculated, yes, according to the rules. But I don't really hold it against him. What happened? My priest paid the price for his life, and was left alone. Why should we judge him? And I also thought that when I lived at Nagua's house, I didn't experience any horrors. After all, she was not imprisoned in any way and was provided for. But in the outside world, of course, the priest lived by his own terms. Cooper understood that the priest had a lot of blood on his hands, but only with his light hand. He and Louisa became so close. It was Harry who gave him the money to develop the business. You can't execute a man all his life. And then Louisa and Cooper decided to invite Nagua to them for New Year's break. There was no one else for him to go to. At least not yet. Harry prepared for the meeting. Took cognac, good champagne, candy, and chose toys for the children. Judging by the address, Cooper lived with his family in a cottage community. Somewhere Harry drove up and saw a nice, neat cottage in the yard. The children are making a snowman. Leo, as he grew up, and the two girls beside him. The little snow maidens are having fun, someone laughing with them. This is Louisa herself as a child having fun and enjoying the snow. He must have arrived early. She noticed Nagua getting out of the car and froze for a moment. The doubt on her face changed to a smile. "Harry, come on in. We're making a snowman here now. And then we'll go inside." "It's Leo," the guest clarified, "just in case. Yes, he's grown up now, and we have daughters." Cooper came out on the porch and gestured for Nagua to come to the house, climbed on the porch, looked around the yard, the children's ex-wife, and Sorik himself, demonstrably glanced at his watch, hurriedly slipped the packages into the hands of the owner of the house and hurried back. "Here are presents for you and the children. You just got here. Where are you going?" Cooper was surprised. "I forgot," said Harry, and got into the car. He was overcome by a whole bunch of emotions, which he tried to hide deeply from everybody and himself. He was touched, upset, jealous, and happy for Christy. He did not yet know which feelings were greater. Only one single tear rolled down his cheek.
Don't forget to subscribe our channel and like it. Thank you.